Hello and welcome to Life of Die, the podcast which discusses all things relating to role-playing games and war games. I'm Gordon, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Joshua Van Zaane, the man behind Crown of Command. It was after I was invited onto his show that I got the podcasting bug, and well, here we are today. So Life of Die owes Josh and Crown of Command a great debt of gratitude. So welcome to Life of Die, Josh. Thanks for coming on.
Gordon, it's my pleasure, mate, and thank you very much for inviting me on, mate. It's been awesome.
It was great because I really enjoyed my time when I was on your show, so it's great to return the favour. In my introduction there, obviously, I was referring to Crown of Command as a podcast, but it's really not just a podcast, is it? It's actually something much, much bigger. And I was wondering, probably the best place to start with this was maybe to let the listeners know exactly what Crown of Command is.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it has evolved over time from being a very, very small idea and concept in my mind that I'm totally new to podcasting. I've never done it before. I came in as a complete amateur. Mm-hmm. Had no idea how to do it, where to even begin, and it wasn't until the help of my sister. She gave me a link to a podcasting like a service, like a hosting site, I should say. And then I just thought, well, what the hell? All I had was like a PS4 microphone, the one for the PS4, mm-hmm. which gives like a little headset and a mic. And I just plugged into my little, Microsoft Surface Pro 3 here, and I just started recording stuff. And my main goal was really to bring the stories of the community members that I had met through Facebook groups and online, and bring them into a new format and make it audio, and maybe by doing that, then sort of reaching a bigger audience, and more importantly, making and sort of archiving all these great stories from people in the community that I'd met, and some really, really outstanding people in the community. And yeah, I mean, that was its real conception. That was the real sort of intention and motivation from me anyway. And yeah, and here we are today, and we're sort of just, getting bigger and growing more and more. And hopefully it's inspiring someone like yourself there, Gordon. You're starting your own podcast and YouTube channel, so that's wonderful. And that was the other thing that I really wanted. I thought, well, if I'm going to wait for somebody to do this, as in, focusing on HeroHammer, focus on the 90s, Games Workshop games, and that kind of thing, I could be waiting forever. It could never happen. Mm-hmm. So I thought, if I don't do it, and if I don't sort of lead the way and say, hey, okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, I don't really particularly like listening to my voice on the radio. I think I've got a terrible voice for radio. I mean, it's awful. But, if I didn't do it, then no one's going to do it. But now we've got, a number of podcasts out there, or YouTube content, or people creating, and that's just wonderful to see. So that means I can enjoy their creative avenues, whether it might be in wargaming or whatever it might be. So yeah, that was the initial conception of the podcast anyway.
Yeah, and if it makes you feel any better, I feel exactly the same way about my own voice. I think that's totally natural to MD that goes into this. So that was the podcast, was the starting point, and you were engaging with people in the community?
Yeah, I think so, mate. Yeah, I think it was just, well, and I actually posed the question to the Middlehammer group, many, many moons ago, would there be any interest in a podcast about, talking about, Games Workshop games like like not necessarily Hero, but Warhammer or something like that. And, I was surprised to get a fairly big response. So people seem quite encouraging about something like that. Because there's just nothing out there for it. And I really wanted, if I was going to do something like this, I'd really want to center it on something that is not already out there. So I'm not into the new current game so much. And so I'm sort of a bit of a nostalgia junkie, if you like. I like taking those nostalgia pills every day, and I like, looking at old stuff. And, when I was, 17, 18, just getting into Games Workshop through HeroQuest and various other games, and painting, especially because painting was my real. I really loved listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
yeah,
Neil Shook.
I follow Mike on Twitter as well, and yeah, I've had a few interactions with him as well. He's really nice, a lovely guy. Hello, if you're listening to us both.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I hope Neil's listening, and I love listening to the origin stories. Not so much about the main topic, but what they're talking about, but certainly how they got into the hobby, and I always found that very interesting. and Mike Hobbs, of course, was part of that duo. And sadly, that's ended, and I felt there's a massive gap in my listenership or their listenership or whatever it might be. But, it was really sad to see those guys go. But, they've done it for over a decade, and I can totally understand why they wanted a big break and just get out of it. But that sort of left me with this kind of, well, maybe I should try doing something myself, and then trying to bring the stories of the people I connected with through Facebook in the Hero Hammer group or Midway Hammer group, whatever it might be, and bring their story out to people to listen to. And I think it's been, so far, quite successful in that sense.
I would completely agree with that, because it's great to see, how much content that you put out about so many of those kind of classic games that I think it's actually very timely when this has arrived, your podcast, because of obviously the way the pandemics went across the world. That from what I can gather online, there's a lot of people that are suddenly reconnecting with the hobby. I think there's an aspect of it where there's people that have grew up with it in the 90s that have had families, and now their families are kind of growing up, and the guys are suddenly kind of looking back, as like you said, you're giving that nice little nostalgia hit, games that they loved when they were kids, and they're getting back in. As far as I can tell, there's a lot of people painting a lot of miniatures at the moment, and I've noticed it particularly in your community as well. So yeah, that's probably something else we should talk about, is your community that you've got. You do have community pages about the kind of painting challenges and things like that you've set, and there's some great stuff in there.
Mate, there's been really good stuff. Yeah, no. Well, that all came about because I met Jesse Callahan at New Zealand through the Old World Painting Challenge, I think it's called. It's like a 3rd edition, 4th edition painting challenge that's set up by a gentleman in Canada. I think it's in the French part of Canada. And he's got this long-running painting challenge where people, put, they throw down I can't remember how many points it was. I think it was about 2,000 points. 2,000 points or a 1,000-point list, and they painted over 6 months. And I met Jesse through the Hero Hammer Facebook group because he offered a Empire army that he didn't want, and he wanted to get someone to paint his Chaos army, and he would exchange that for the Empire army. And that's how we initially met. This is over 12 months ago, before the pandemic hit. And so I said, yeah, okay, well, I'll paint the army map for you, and I'll do this for this challenge. And he actually joined the challenge as well, which is what really, really great to see, because at that point, Jesse had no painted armies, had nothing. He had lots of lead, tons and tons of lead models, and beautiful, gorgeous collections of various Citadel old 80s, 90s models. And so I thought it was a pretty good deal. I've never done this before. It was like the first time I've sort of exchanged, models to paint for other people. And it worked out to be a really great partnership, and me and Jesse are really good friends now. And the Empire Army just arrived in the mail a few days ago, amazingly, and I've almost finished his Chaos Army. I've got one Slanesh Keeper of Secrets to do for him, and a couple more Beastmen, and it's ready to be sent back to New Zealand so he can start enjoying playing with his Chaos Army. But we're doing a very similar challenge that Jesse and a couple other guys had asked about whether we should do it through the Crown of Command, and that's the Call of the Crown, which is a 1-year-long painting challenge, or a 6-month painting challenge where people, mainly from the Hero Hammer community, have sort of joined us in that. And because of the COVID situation, people in lockdown, especially in Europe, they had nowhere to go. They had plenty of time on their hands, and it was probably the most opportune moment for them to actually get out all those dusty lead models and start painting them. And so far, it's been incredibly good. I've been really proud of those guys to be still in it after all this time. We've gone past the 6-month part now, so the people who have put in the 1,000-point armies have finished, and the 12-month, the pledges are still going. But it's just been incredible to see the amount of the work that's been done and the standard that's been done at.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and it's just the amount of, like you say, there's the sheer volume of posts that I've seen on your community. So I suppose some people might want to look your community up. So where can they find you?
Well, yeah, if they want to find us, and if you're on Facebook, just go in and search the Crown of Command podcast, and you'll find us there. That's just like a public kind of a page, and there's also a private community page, which is basically under the same title, the Crown of Command podcast, but this one's a community, and that's just a closed group where people can share their Call of the Crown entries, or they can talk about their hobby or share anything they want related to HeroHammer, basically. But that's a really fun group too. I honestly don't spend that much time on it, to be honest, because I'm just so busy in doing so many other things. But that's I don't really need to be there, because it's sort of, it's turning over. It's doing its good work already, and people are already interacting and sharing things together and being inspired, which is the main thing.
Yeah, I noticed that the people are very supportive of each other, and it's a very friendly community. So I mean, it's a great thing, because it's a kind of safe space, if you like, and you don't really need to police it, because everybody there is there because they love the same things, and everyone's enthusiastic and encouraging. That's not always the case in some Facebook groups, but I'm a member. I have been for a while, so I know exactly what goes on in there, and it's I can only recommend it. I've got nothing bad to say about it at all. I've not seen anything like that, and it's just been, it's just great seeing pictures of painted minis, and they have all that old school vibe that you were talking about, and it's just, yeah, I've been loving just watching it, and that's even as a person who's, for me personally, I'm an epic person, and that's where my interest is. But I'm still really enjoying seeing all the Warhammer stuff and games that I don't really have any involvement with. But it's still just great seeing what these guys are doing. And of course, you've got a Discord server as well.
Yeah, mate, we've got a Discord set up by Dave. Dave set it up for us, and it's been really successful. And I'm really glad he did it, because when he initially did it, I thought, man, I don't want to deal with Discord. I had dealt with Discord before in different groups. I think it was of Song of Ice and Fire or whatever, and I just had like these just massive amount of notifications and that kind of thing. I had to get out of it. But when he set it up, I wasn't really overly thrilled initially. But then I realized, wow, this is a really great space for people to come and chat, because it's got all these voice chats and that kind of thing. You've got video access. You can share images, of course, of everything. And it was just a place away from Facebook that people could engage with outside of those main sort of big, social networking structures. So I think it's just been a blessing, because I've now got to actually speak with people. And I've got to make some really great friendships in the community. So we're really like a really tight, close-knit group of people now. And if it wasn't for that, I don't think the fanzine would have become what it is now. I honestly don't think so. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it still would have happened, but I don't think so. I think because we've been chatting and talking and getting more personal with each other, I think it's just grown even bigger and more. We've become more of a stronger group now because of that. And we just opened up a chat, and I think Marcel from Germany, he's always on there. Just about every single day. And he's just there painting away, and people will just drop in and say hello. And it's just been a really great space for people, who just need to connect and just talk to people.
Yeah.
Especially if they're in some kind of lockdown or in, some pretty bad situation there.
Mm-hmm. No, it's an escape, really, from what's going on in the world. And like I say, people suddenly get time on their hands that they maybe didn't have before. And I think that is why we've kind of seen a mass. I'm talking more from the epic side of things, but from what I can tell on your groups, it's the same in the other communities as well. That again, it's the same thing. People are going back to from what you just said there about the miniatures, unpainted miniatures, and then suddenly, okay, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to go on and do it. So that's a brilliant thing that you're doing. That you're connecting people and you are inspiring people that they want to be part of this project. They want to contribute and grow these communities, because at the end of the day, I think most hobby fans are the same. They like the same things, and I think there is a kind of, my experience anyway with the wargaming and role-playing groups is it tends to be that they're always really nice people, overwhelmingly. And I think that it's a great thing if you can connect with people, because they're all feeding off that enthusiasm that you're giving them, basically, with your challenges and your podcasts. And yeah, I think that's a brilliant thing, Josh. I really do. And obviously it's affected me directly in that was a big inspiration for me when I went on it. I'd never thought about doing a podcast. It was when you put that open call out to the epic community. I thought, well, why don't I just do it? Let's go for it. I love the game. I want to talk about it, so let's do it. And then a few months later, I thought, yeah, I want to do that more, and let's do it. But it's as I say, it's now become quite a big consideration, and I totally understand what you're saying about demands in your time, because when you're creating all this stuff, it's labour intensive, but it's fun. That's first and foremost, and I'm hoping you're having as much fun doing it yourself and all this happening. I'm sure you are.
Yeah, but I just keep on taking more work on, so I'm my own worst enemy, really, when you come to think of it. But but I'm really glad you started your own podcast now, mate, and you're doing your own YouTube thing. We just talked about that before, off air. And it's really great to see. I mean, it's excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted, active people in the community. The funny thing is we're talking about games that are dead and long ago buried, and, they've had various iterations that have superseded them. And some people might have thought that I'm doing something absolutely crazy. Why am I talking about all these old games that no one plays anymore? But I think for everything, there's always some kind of niche that you'll find some people interested in it that will listen to it, or will find some comfort in listening to stories of old and that kind of thing that I do. So if it has, even the most marginal amount of impact, or gives a certain amount of pleasure to people in what I'm doing, then that's very rewarding, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you feel that way, because it's, as I say, I definitely found it inspirational. That's for sure, and I was very pleased that I really enjoyed the experience of being on, and how welcoming you were when you didn't really know much about me other than I'd posted a couple of things about an Epic and things like that. So it was really inspirational. The other thing I think is really inspirational, which we haven't really mentioned enough about yet, definitely not, is we have referenced it, is HeroHammer, your fanzine. And yeah, so obviously you were mentioning there that you connected with these people in the community, and so a number of these were people that were then contributing to the fanzine. So I was wondering if you want to maybe talk about the background to that, and then obviously talk about as well what exactly the fanzine is for anybody that's not in the know. There's a lot of buzz about it, so hopefully most people will know that are listening what this is and where to find it. But I'll let you do your sales pitch. Go for it.
Yeah, well, it's only been out for a week, and it's been a marvelous project that we've all been working on. And it's not only myself, but Angel. Now, Angel is a man from Spain. I've never met him in person. I actually got to speak to him only for the very first time about a week ago, when we had a bit of a post-launch celebration on Discord. He's a really nice guy. I've never met him in person, but he's a wonderful painter. He's very, very artistic. He's a graphic designer by trade, great illustrator. He's just one of those really talented people, and a really nice bloke to boot. He's got lots of motivation in getting or just having a go at doing something different. And I think he was the main brainchild behind this whole HeroHammer fanzine in the first place. And he pitched this kind of idea to me one day as I was traveling to work, and he sent me this sort of like a mock-up of a cover with the HeroHammer fanzine logo and that kind of thing. It looked like a real white dwarf, and I thought, wow, looks incredible. And he said, how about it? You want to make a fanzine? I said, yeah, mate, I'm definitely in. This is just I couldn't imagine doing it myself, because I couldn't do it myself, and it's impossible. I don't have the desktop skills. I'm not a graphic designer. I don't know anything about technology. I mean, me and technology just don't get on well anyway. But he's got the skills. He must have the time to put a lot of effort in doing it. And we thought, okay, well, let's think about the people we know in our community, and who would be best suited for particular roles in the fanzine. So we had a look and think about that. So we got Joe Johannes from Denmark. He's kind of like the Math Hammer guy. He does the Fly the Skulls podcast, which is another whole story about that. But we basically met through Facebook as well, and I got him on as a guest on my podcast, and then he later on, with his friend Casper, I asked them to do to make contributions to the podcast, talking about Math Hammer and that kind of thing, because that's what they're passionate about. And then now they're their own podcast out there now, which is quite successful as well. But I thought I'll grab him because he's a great guy with working out. He can do things I can't do. He knows everything about armies and how to the compositions and the best magical item combos and that kind of stuff. He knows all that kind of stuff. So he'd be great for that. We've got Owen Staton, which I've just met recently through Twitter. He's a great storyteller. So Owen's a great guy from Wales. We've got him doing some lore articles. We've got, of course, my good friend Marcel in Germany. He's very passionate about this era of the hobby, even though he's never played a game of 5th edition in his life. He still loves all the miniatures and all the imagery and that kind of thing. So we've got him doing things for just whatever he wants to do, just whatever he wants to write about, whatever's going in his mind. So that's Marcel's musings in the magazine. We've got battle reports that I like to do. I'm a visual artist, so I get off on sort of the visual things. I'm not so interested in the Math Hammer kind of compositions, or like I love gameplay, but I love more so the visual aspect of the fanzine. So that's kind of where I'm sort of sitting in this role. So it's very much an art directional kind of thing, and trying to get all the elements in design where it looks very similar, if not exactly the same as the original White Dwarf from the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got other people coming in as well. We've got Nathan Stone from the Wargames Orchid, who does a lot of lore articles. He's a great, again, another great storyteller, and he does a lot of research into the old world and Warhammer and that kind of thing. So he's got a great place there, and many other people, which I probably haven't mentioned, but Dr. the Viking, another person I had on my podcast, and I met him through his wonderful articles he does for his own blog, and he does some great battle reports with his friends over there. So we've got him on board doing that. So it's basically, we just gathered as many talented people out there who are really passionate about this era of the hobby, and they were just very graciously, accepting our offer and jumped on board. And here we are today with a fully, full color, probably illegal, but it's a full color magazine. we haven't got any cease and desist letters yet from Games Workshop, but I did reach out to them, and people are probably wondering how the hell are they getting away with it, all this stuff using all the GW art. Well, I think we should be okay. We disclaimed everything. We give credit to everybody who's involved, if it's their artwork or whatever. But if the cease and desist letter comes, then I guess it's going to be the end of the fanzine. But we've got one issue out there. So, but it's been a lot of fun though, man. Yeah.
Well, I hope that never comes, because if anybody hasn't seen this, it's really a gorgeous love letter to 90s Games Workshop, and particularly White Dwarf magazines that I grew up with. I was a teenager then, and I really couldn't believe it. I mean, obviously you've said about how many people are contributing to it, and it's their passion that's delivered it, and you can see the passions there. You can absolutely see it. You can see that they love this stuff and they immerse themselves in it, and it's really a beautiful. And it's not, it's not a slight thing. Sometimes fanzine things can be quite slight. This is, many pages is it again, Josh? It's
90 odd pages, man.
90 pages, yeah.
90. Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, I genuinely was really bowled over when I clicked on the link when I saw it coming up on Twitter and retweeted, and I was really blown away by it, because I could see how much work and effort and passion was involved in it, and I thought, you've knocked it out of the park. You really have, and I'm absolutely delighted to hear that there has been a lot of buzz about it in the community, and seems to be getting picked up. There's people talking about it, and I think it's completely deserved for the effort that's gone into it. And I think anybody that opens that, has a look at it, will agree with what I've said. And I don't think you can't underestimate how good it is. It's just exactly what you would expect it to be from that classic period of for some of us of a certain age in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very. Yeah. Like a fine aged wine. But I know what you mean. Like we're very grateful for the time and efforts that people can put into it. How long it will last for, who knows? We could get to the second issue and it sort of just blows up and we never make another one. Who knows? But if it goes for a long time, then that'd be great. I mean, we've got plenty of content. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about and to add to the magazine. I don't think that's really a major issue. Plus, we've got, we're sort of reaching out for people to say, hey, if you've got something, you want to add to the fanzine, send it in to us. We'll have a look at it and we'll probably include it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it is a community-based magazine, so we want contributions from, obviously, the community. That's most important, so that they have probably some great campaign idea or something like that, or maybe some version of house rules they use for their games, or maybe an extension to a certain specialist game that they enjoy, like a certain variant that they play in their club or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why not share it with the greater community through the fanzine? Is probably the best way of doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I have failed to mention a great number of people part of that fanzine, so I am sorry. But we've got amazing talented people like Stuart Thomas, a former heavy metal painter.
Wow.
He's on board with us. Yeah, he's quite keen to do some painting articles. We've got Jeppe Danning from Denmark, who's a sensational painter. I just love his work. And he gave us a lot of photographs of his Night Goblin army, because the first issue is basically focusing on a certain theme, because we like the idea of having a theme initially for the Night Goblins, and the next one will follow a different theme. So I don't know whether, some people are sort of, happy with that. Some people are sort of not so happy with that. But we'll see how we go. If people like that kind of thing, we'll continue with it. So each issue will have a different theme.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea because it gives it a cohesiveness, doesn't it? Really, it gives it a kind of a thread through there. I think that makes sense. Yeah,
I think it does. Yeah, I think the writers have a focus then. Yeah, I think the people have a focus of what they should be, looking to produce for the magazine in that case. But then we sort of splice it in with various other articles, like with the Cowabunga, the Dr. Vikings, his painting challenge they're doing for second edition 40k. We've got that in there. I'm going to put a Space Marine, Epic Space Marine, which will feature yourself there, Gordon. In there, mate, just to give people a heads up that you and John Webb will be in there doing the Warlord supplement.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, I know. We're really looking forward to doing that because I love to have Epic as a definitely a monthly an issue per issue, an article in there. One for that, one for Man of War, one for maybe Necromunda. We haven't touched on Necromunda, and Blood Bowl will definitely be featured in there at some point. But I don't have all the games, so we need other people there with the games and with the experience to write us some articles and send them in so we can include them. I would love to have everything. I love to have all the games and all the miniatures and all the armies, but it's just not possible for one person to do it. So we've got to spread that around, spread the love around amongst the groups of people out there so they can write stuff for us and do things. But Battle Reports is a really interesting one that I really loved seeing in White Dwarves, but it does take an awful lot of time. But I think once Angel puts together a certain amount of assets we can use, like graphically, it will get smoother. And I think the next issue will come together a little bit better because we've got a lot of templates and a lot of sort of the graphical side laid down already. It's mainly just copying, pasting, and proofreading and checking and adding illustrations and that kind of thing, which we're hoping to avoid using Games Workshop property because I know they're very sensitive about that, and I want to. And I've reached out to like John Wigley, which is a former illustrator at Games Workshop, that if he could send us some images that we could use, but of course it's all under GWIP, like all under their IP laws. So it doesn't matter what you use; it's going to be a little bit contentious as to whether we can get away with doing it. But we're not asking for money; it's completely free. It will be free forever, and no one has to pay a cent for it. This is all off our own backs. So and that way we can't get we're not going to be incriminated in any way. Which is the main thing. But it was never meant to be anything that we're going to profit from. Never. It was never, ever meant to be like that. It was just purely a free fanzine for the community.
Yeah, I mean, the battle reports that you're talking about, they were always my kind of favourite things. And I suppose this is to do with my own personal likes and dislikes. Not dislikes. There wasn't aspects of the hobby I particularly disliked. I always admired the painting, but I was never able to kind of fully embrace that. I've always struggled with the painting side of the hobby, whereas the actual game, the gaming side, I was all about. I want these miniatures on the table. I want to play games. That's where my focus always was with the hobby. So the battle reports, yeah, that's really exciting to me that there's going to be more battle reports in the future. And I'm thrilled to be a small part of that hopefully in the coming issue or sometime in the future when that's ready to do. So it's really exciting to do it. And especially, obviously, I looked up to, I was always interested to know who these guys were that you would see in the magazines, the Andy Chambers and Gav Thorpe, who very luckily I've managed to actually speak to in real life in recent times. So that was really exciting to me because I always wondered what these people were like, and to actually hear them talking about designing games and so on was really exciting to me. So it's really strange. It's a really great opportunity, and I'm really excited about the fact that I'm in a small way kind of stepping into their shoes and trying to write a report that's a bit like what they did back in those classic episodes. I'm sure probably everybody that's going to be involved in a battle report is probably feeling the same way I do and champing at the bit to get going. Yeah, I think that's a great thing. But yeah, again, also the painting side, I always did like the heavy metal, just looking at them, but I always thought, I can't do this stuff. I've gotten better, but I'm never going to be at that level. I've accepted that I'm at peace with it now. If I've got painted miniatures, that's they look okay. I can live with it, but it is inspiring to see all those images in there. And obviously, as I said about the communities earlier on, that you see these images all the time. It blows my mind that there's so many people painting and posting their pictures in the almost uniform. They look brilliant. It's incredible what you're doing over there, what you've kind of started. I mean, going back to what I said at the start, it's a podcast, but in actual fact, with the community and with the Hero Hammer, it actually feels like there's a kind of movement that you've created, basically, and people are totally coming on board and throwing all their energy at it. You know, that's a testament to you, because you're at the helm there, and have encouraged that. So I suppose we should maybe talk a little bit about the podcast as well. So for them that it's missed out, what kind of topics and games have you covered there?
Well, initially, it will probably be most predominantly Warhammer Fantasy 5th edition. I think that's probably the game that's probably most popular among our listeners. But, you know, ever since we talked about and having interviews about people about their armies and that kind of thing and their origin stories, but then we sort of branched off in the second season now. I really wanted to cover Epic Space Marine and Man of War, some more of the specialist games of Games Workshop, which are also long-time favourites for many people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've been received really well. I had John Webb helping me out a lot. You know, John did a lot of the work. Really, he's just a great person to, if you give him something to do with Epic, he's so passionate about it. And I mean, he knows the cover of those rulebooks back to front. You know, he just knows everything about them. So he works in the games industry. So probably the best person to ask. And I'm really glad that John can take up his time on his weekends to help me out with those. It's been really good.
Yeah, they're excellent podcasts. As an Epic fan myself, I can tell his depth of knowledge in it. And yeah, I've been really impressed with those as well, and recommend them to the Epic community. For them that's listening, please give them a go, because they're really fun.
Well, I hope so, because we're just reading verbatim on the pages of the book. So it's not. I don't know if it's just like reading a manual to a podcast, or whether it's entertaining for people. I don't know, but we're basically just reading straight from the rule books. So we're saying, okay, well, this is this unit, this is the stats, this is what it does, this is special rules, blah 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 blah, and it's just basically to inform people who have never played Epic. Because we started off obviously with the main rule book and explained the rules and how to play it, and then sort of went into the armies in chronological order. So we just finished the Warlord supplement, which took about, 3 episodes, I think it was. It was a big one. And then, and we're giving that a break, and then we'll come back in a couple of months or 3 months or something and do Renegades once we've started painting up our own armies for that. And because I know John's got a massive Khorne army for Epic Space Marine. Looks wonderful. He's a great painter, great hobbyist, and he's done great work on his Epic stuff. He's really passionate about that, which is cool. Yeah, I'm going to just play some games or get 2,000 point armies knocked up, so we can play some games first before we get into tackling that. But Man of War has been another big revelation for me, because I've only acquired that maybe several months ago. And having played it, I've never played it in person. I've only played it remotely with other people in Australia and in Germany and Canada now. And just had a great time playing that game. It's just an awesome game that I wish I'd picked it up when it came out. And I knew I would have just loved it. And I think a lot of guys in my gaming group would have really embraced that game because it only needs a handful of models, and the rules aren't seriously complex, but the fleets make up for that in regards to the style and the way they play and the special rules that each ship encompasses. So it's been a really, really good game, that one, and I'm so glad to have discovered that now. But I think they're the main. Yeah, sorry, mate. They're the 2 main games the 3 main games we've been covering, and we're going to go into 40K second edition at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably a long way off yet.
So I was going to ask you, what were your go-to games and how did you get into gaming? Because you asked this question in your program, and I think it's about time somebody asked it of you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think HeroQuest, generally board games, like you say, Gordon, like you said before, it shouldn't come up with any sort of the rules should be very clear and cut, and there should be no There's a word I'm missing here, but I can't remember what it is now. But yeah,
Wriggle room.
That's right. Yeah, there should be no, no air of error or uncertainty about a certain particular thing. Maybe that's not the case. I don't know. But anyhow, my first venture into sort of fantasy gaming was HeroQuest, and it was like a big commercial success for Milton Bradley and Games Workshop, respectively. And I think it was about 16 or 17 at the time when I first got that. And yeah, I mean, wow, I've never seen a board game like that. We were normally playing things like Monopoly, or I think Stratego was probably the only thing that had, plastic pieces that you can move around. It was like an actual war game. So this just opened up a whole new world to me that I'd never seen before or had experienced before. So, and of course that in turn developed this interest in painting, because on the side of the box were all these beautifully painted samples of all the miniatures in the core set. And it came, of course, Games Workshop very kindly put in an address where you could, send away for your painting catalogue and all that kind of thing. So I did that. I sent away for the painting guide, which I think cost about $10 back in those days, and that's really expensive for a returned envelope. But after many months, I got it back, and there it was. It was like you had like the red catalogue, which showcased all the games. And I think at that time it was like 3rd edition fantasy. It was like Rogue Trader 40K, Space Hulk 1st edition, of course, Mighty Empires, all those kind of classic games in there, really old hammer. And this painting guide, and that sort of really set me off, because I was just totally in love with the painting aspect of it. But of course, the paints I was using and all that kind of thing were like these old Tamiya Revell paints, really awful, smelly, toxic, poisonous stuff that no one should ever use. And of course, I made the most hideous paintings you've ever seen. That of course went to see the strip bath, and then they melted the plastic miniatures and all that kind of thing. We've all been there, I'm sure. All fun times. But yeah, then I discovered, of course, through the catalogue, all these other wonderful games like Warhammer, and that caught my eye more than anything else, because it had all these beautiful models ranked up in units, and they were fighting big battles on big tables of terrain and that kind of stuff. And I really wanted to know more about that. So I think for my birthday, I think I got the 3rd edition rulebook from the local gaming store. I think it was called Daily Planet, but I'm sure that might be wrong, because there was 2 stores in my area on the Gold Coast. It was one in like a mall area. It was like a little sister, or like a little a second store to the main store that was in Brisbane, and that was called the Daily Planet, but I forget what the other store was. But they had a small selection of Games Workshop products in there. They had, of course, the rule books and everything. They had some paint boxes, the paint sets, I should say. And I bought some of those later on. I sort of saved all my pocket money, and I worked my father during the holidays, and I'd spend all my money on all this sort of stuff. And my mum was an artist already, so I used to borrow her brushes and that kind of stuff. And I would just be totally immersed in this world of fantasy of Warhammer, and I would buy anything I could get my hands on. And we would later on, after meeting other guys in a gaming club, that we would take these road trips up to Brisbane and go to the Daily Planet, which had the whole entire range of stuff. And we'd buy lots of different metal models and take them home and paint them terribly, and I would throw them away because I didn't know anything about stripping metal models. I'd just throw them in the bin.
Oh man,
it's quite funny looking back at it now. Yeah, but I think one thing progressed to another, and me and my mate Chris, we got into Epic Space Marine, mainly because of the scale, and that we could buy an entire army in a box. It was very cheap. We didn't have a lot of money to spend. We couldn't do Warhammer because Warhammer, it would have cost us hundreds and hundreds of dollars. We just didn't have that kind of money. So we got an Epic Space Marine, and we just loved it. We just played it religiously every weekend. I went to his place. I drove down to his place, and we played it on his living room floor. He collected orcs. I collected Chaos Marines and Space Marines, and he had Eldar as well. Yeah, he had the Eldar as well, and we just played that every weekend. We never got sick of it. We never tired of it. We just played it all the time, and we got other guys in our gaming group involved in it as well. And Yeah, they were the best years of my life, I think, in gaming and friendship as well, because Chris is a really good friend and we're still good friends now after all this time. But yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, they were my best memories. So that's why, I really wanted to get back into Epic Space Marine when I started getting back into the HeroHammer stuff, because, after all this time, maybe it was looking through rose-tinted glasses, but I don't think I was. I think the rules are still great. I think the models are still fantastic for what they are, and it's still a very playable game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's that, like you say, the scale, I think, is a real selling with Epic, that you feel that you're getting. I know Warhammer 40,000 has gone a bit this way as well in more recent years, but to me, there was something about seeing dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of troops on your tabletop, and the tanks and the titans, and yeah, there was something about that, just seeing that set up, even without actually enjoying the game. Like, even if you didn't enjoy the game, there was something about seeing those armies laid out on a tabletop. I have to say, I didn't have a great setup at those days. I mean, it was like a sheet on the floor. That was how basic it was. So in later years, when I was able to get gaming tables and stuff, it was like really exciting to me, because I'm like, oh, this actually looks quite good now. I know there's people out there that do better than I do, and I'm, I wouldn't claim that I'd have the best setups in the world, but I'm quite happy with what I've got compared to my humble beginnings with a big sheet on the floor. But there was something about that I always thought was special about the scale of it, and it felt like you were having a real battle, rather than back then. My experience of 40k really was with Rogue Trader, and it was just a skirmish game. I say it was a great, it was a good game. There was nothing wrong. But there was something about being able to have those mass conflicts that just, I think, because I was a fan of science fiction anyway, Star Wars and things like that, I just thought, wow, we can actually run a battle like this. And so that was really why I think that is at the core, and it remains to this day when you set up. And it's the same when you set up when I played remotely against you before as well. It's, you still get that even via the webcam, which was it was good fun to do that. So obviously from those kind of humble beginnings, I suppose, with the hobby, you've now come full circle and you've created this movement, as I said earlier on.
Cult.
A cult, yeah.
The cult of the crown. Or cult of command. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what your future plans are. You've achieved so much in such a short period of time. What is it you see as a future for Crown of Command?
I don't know. Like, it's a funny thing because we're dealing with a group of people in love with a certain time and period of the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's not going to last forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are no new generations of people who are going to pick up the mantle, or who are going to, it's like, okay, if you have a mate that who wants to get into wargaming, you wouldn't introduce them to like 5th edition Warhammer. I don't think. You're probably more likely to introduce them to a new current game that's constantly active and that kind of thing. That has like a modern game, for instance.
A tournament scene, maybe.
Not so much tournaments, but like something that they can actually go and buy from a store. But the problem with these games is that I've got a mate who lives around the corner here. He's sort of just getting into miniature gaming, and I was sort of thinking, well, should I introduce him to Epic Space Marine? Should I introduce him to these? But I don't think I will, because because he's the kind of guy that he likes something and then he wants to buy it from somewhere. Well, then it becomes this massive problem where he's going to get it from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're sort of, like I said, we're a niche within a niche with what we're doing. And, I'm just so grateful that it's become what it is today out of something so small, that it's sort of, grown. I think partly because of the painting challenge more than anything. And I think that's been a great driving force in getting people motivated to paint armies. And then once the lockdown, or once the coronavirus is finally gone, they've made new friends where they can go and meet up and play games with, which is the ultimate goal. Because when I first started looking to HeroHammer, people were excited about looking at pictures of miniatures, but they were very, to find someone who actually played the game was almost impossible, because there's no one playing it. There's very, very few people playing it. So I just hope that in the future people can continue their love or passion for the game, or be enthusiastic about being motivated to paint these armies, because at the end there's some kind of end goal, there's some kind of motivating factor in doing all this kind of stuff. Either because it's just a collection that they're painting, or there's a game. For me, it's like, I know there's a game coming up at the end of this month, so I need to paint X, 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 and Y to get that finished before we have the game. So that's my big motivator for me. And apart from that, I just hope the fanzine will continue for as long as everybody is willing to put the time and effort into it. I've recently, as of a couple of weeks ago, I've got another passion apart from HeroHammer, and to be in truth, it's not really related to the Crown of Command, but I have another passion that's for a game called Confrontation, which I don't know if you've ever heard of, but it's by a French company called Rackham.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Heard of it? Okay, well, yeah. Again, it's a niche within a very, very small niche, much, much, much smaller than the HeroHammer community. That's another passion of mine that I want to get the community on board on Facebook through people I've met or known for many, many years through various online communities since I got back into it from the year about 2000, 2001 or something like that. It's another old dead game that no one plays anymore, that I'm still in love with, that it was an assembly, if you like, of people who were so talented, and they brought the best out in what their talents were. And that game and the miniature design and the process of designing miniatures and making miniatures and casting them basically shaped the miniature industry for decades to come. So they were really revolutionary in what they did. And that's my next big venture, is launching another podcast. Yes, that's right. You've heard it right. I've got 2 podcasts now. Something another YouTube.
That's just greedy.
Yeah, it's crazy, mate. I'm going nuts, but and doing another YouTube channel. For what it's worth, I mean, 10 people might be listening to it, and if those 10 people who listen to it feel that, hey, this is quite cool. This is the thing I'm really into, and I'm really passionate about this game as well, and the miniatures and whatever, then I felt that I've succeeded somehow. But again, it's not really related to the Crown of Command. I think the Crown of Command is in a really, really safe, good place right now with the community that's built up through it, through the Discord, through the Facebook group, through the fanzine, and I'm going to be a big part of that, of course. That's going to be a constant thing that I'll be part of. But the other sort of love of my life in terms of hobby is Confrontation and Rackham. So I really want to dip my toe into that every now and again, and bring some new voices to a new podcast, and hopefully that will take off and support the community there as well. That's my goal. And in terms of the hobby, and in relation to Crown of Command, I have been in talks with a gentleman. I think he's from Australia, who's doing like 3D designs of miniatures and making his own miniatures. He's a really talented sculptor, and he was asking me a lot of advice. He was sending me pictures and that kind of thing about what to do. And I said, how about we make a game? How about we write rules for a game and use your miniatures and produce a game for it? So,
oh man, that's really exciting.
Yeah, and that might eventuate. That might be just me talking absolute gibberish. I mean, I don't know. I've never designed a game in my life. It could be absolutely horrible, and no one would want to be interested in it. But I don't know. It's got potential. I mean, he's got the passion to make miniatures. He's good at it. I've seen his work, and it looks really promising. So who knows? Who knows what the future will bring? But that's something I've always been interested in, and I think most people have been. You play a lot of games, and maybe you think you have your own idea or concept for a game for yourself that you'd want to try with your friends or in your local club, and if it's successful, then great. You've created something new. That's a new avenue, if you like, a new experience, a new pathway. So who knows what that might be just talk, and it may never happen. But then the fanzine's already here. So I mean, anything, if you can make a fanzine with not solely, but with the help of a lot of other people, then making a game in the same way could be potentially possible too down the track. So who knows? Well,
your podcast has been a great success. Magazine, as I said earlier on, is it's just stunning. It's really great. So I've no doubt that you've you'll put your talents to good use and make a great game as well. You know, if anybody can do it, you've got that can-do attitude, and I think if anybody can do it, it's definitely you. So that's really exciting. So definitely want to watch this place. So on behalf of the wargaming community, just before you go, I want to thank you for everything you've done in reviving a lot of these games that we all loved from our childhood, and for the HeroHammer fanzine, which I thought, as I said before, and I'll keep saying it, it's incredible. Go and check it out. I hope people will follow you on your YouTube channel at Crown of Command, and give you a subscribe, join your community on Facebook or Discord. You're on Twitter as well, so that's another place to find you. Yeah, thank you so much for being a big inspiration to me and doing what I'm doing now. That's an amazing thing, but more importantly, that you're actually giving, through what you've done, you've kind of breathed new life into, as you said, a lot of dead systems that people were spread over the world. And I know for a fact already that what you've done with your online gaming, when you've hosted online games, there are other people doing that now. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's because people saw your channel and yeah, this is a good way to play during the pandemic. But I think most of all, though, you'll be connecting a lot of people, and as you say, they've painted their armies, and now once this is over and we're all getting back to normal life, I think a lot of people will be like, right, I painted them, I want to put these to good use now, I'm going to get them onto the tabletop and I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it. And I think that's, more power to you, whatever, don't stop. I think it's brilliant. So thank you again for everything you've done for those communities in particular, and thank you for coming on to tell us all about it and inspiring me as well personally.
My pleasure, mate. Yeah, thanks very much, Gordon, for inviting me on. It's a great honour to be on your podcast, mate, and I'm just so happy that, like I said before, that you felt that you wanted to be a creator yourself and do something you're passionate about, which in the end of the day it's all that matters, and you're affecting people around you now. That you're giving a positive impact on people's lives with your passion for your games, which is the most important thing. And you're not asking for anything in return, just only that they go out and then they start actively being part in the community, or start taking up or dusting off those miniatures or dusting off those books and getting back stuck into it again. So, and giving them some kind of purpose, because I suppose with COVID and everything that's happened, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be out of it very soon. But it would have caused a lot of stressful times for a lot of people out there, and hopefully through the work we've done, it's given some people a bit of happiness in those times, mate.
It definitely has. So you've done yourself and all the contributors, the whole community you've had there, definitely have done that. So I think it's a fantastic thing. And as I say, I think everybody should get involved if they've got any love for any of those games, and check out your whole back catalogue of podcasts and go through the communities, and you'll have a ball. So thanks again, John.
God, some of those videos are bad though. But yeah, if you want to sit through those, by all means. But yeah, I won't attest to say that any of them are really of good quality. They're very amateurish, so I do apologise in advance. But thanks very much again, Gordon, and have a great day, mate. And I'll hope to speak to you again soon. Okay, mate. Take care.
You too, Josh. Look forward to it. So thanks again to Josh from Crown of Command for joining me for a great chat there, and please do check out his community, his podcast and his HeroHammer fanzine. I'll drop some links wherever you're hearing this podcast, so please do follow him where you can. And we've also got plenty more coming up on the slate with Epic, 2000 AD gaming, and much more on the role-playing front, so please do consider subscribing to our YouTube channel as well. I hope you can join me and my good friend Craig for the next podcast, which will be the first in a series discussing our love of Epic 40k. So until next time, keep on living the life of Die. Hello and welcome to Life of Die, the podcast which discusses all role-playing games and wargaming. I'm sorry, I've just ballsed that up.
The pressure, mate, the pressure. It's enormous.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't do these intros when I had the other guys on. So it's the first time I've kind of done it live. Hello and welcome to Life of Die. Sorry, man. Hello and welcome to Life of Die, the podcast which discusses things. Oh man.
This has to be like the blooper reel at the end. Like, you've got to include this at the end of the podcast. Yeah.